Welcome, everybody, to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. John here, and I would encourage you, if you like what you're hearing, please hit that subscribe button. It helps others get to where they're going. Today is it's an episode for me that it hits all the heartstrings. It's a pretty important month. It's Women's History Month, and I wanted to spend some time talking about the women in my life that have been influential and have helped me get to where I am today. I know I would not be anywhere near where I am as a human being, as a man, as a father, as a son, if it were not for the women in my life that helped me, whether it was family or you're going to hear about two of them today, a very influential professor that I had when I was in graduate school. But let's get into this thing. First, I got to give kudos to my mom. And my mom and dad divorced when I was sixth grade ish, about 12 years old. And it was a pivotal time in my formative years. Growing up, I was, anyone who's raised kids or has had children and is around that 12 to 13-year-old range, they begin to, life happens. And I got very angry, internalized a lot of anger, and it created a lot of stress for me. And it was a hard time, and for me growing up. And my dad and I are best friends now. He was still around. He always showed up, and I talked about that and how that made me who I am. But my mom was the one who took care of us all. She had custody of us, and we had weekends with my dad. But for the most part, it was a consensus decision to keep us in the home and to keep us in our schools. That minimal impact on our lives, which I appreciate. But mom, in order to make ends meet, she had to work two, sometimes three jobs. And even when my dad and mom were married, I always remember my mom, working, whether it was babysitting. She worked at Macy's retail department store. She worked at UPS. One Christmas Eve, it was the Thanksgiving Christmas when, they ramp up and packages this was before Amazon, by the way. So UPS and FedEx were two primary in postal service were how we got our mail and our packages. And people always say, yeah, you must, they know my dad. I mentioned I'm the second generation for the organization that I work in. And a lot of the people that I work in and I work with now, they know my father, and they're always, complimenting our work ethic and how, we're hard workers. And I will tell you, and Dad, don't get mad, because I get other things from you that are really, really good. But my work ethic comes from my mother. It does. It comes from, I can remember when she was working UPS one Christmas season, and it was icy and snowy out, and she fell, and she was bruised up from her side that she hit on the ground and her arm, and that didn't stop her. She knew that Christmas season was on the way. We needed some extra money for whatever we got, and we didn't get a lot for Christmas. I can remember growing up, we got like one big present growing up, and we weren't poor by any means. We had everything that we needed, but that was our Christmases, and mom worked her tail off in order to help provide those extra presents. And I can remember when she would go to school in the evening, and this was after my mom and dad divorced. That's where I learned how to play chess. We a local community college here in Oklahoma, and she would go to night school to working on her degree. And there was a chess club when she would go to night school, and we'd bring my younger brother and sister, I'm the oldest of three, up there, and I'd watch them, but I'd also play chess with chess club. And I learned speed chess. I learned how to play chess, and I can to this day, there was a cafeteria, and we'd go eat and we'd hang out while mom was going to school. But that's who she was. And she continues to work today. She continues to, help anybody. It doesn't matter how she's feeling, how, what state of mind and health that she's in, she will give you the last dime in her pocket and the shirt off her back. And that's just my mom. And that's celebrating Women's History Month. It's those types of things that I think about when times get tough, and I'm able to push through as a leader now, remembering back who led us. She was a single mom raising three kids and trying to make ends meet. My mom was a teacher's aide for 20 plus years, and her highest salary she made, and I know this because I do her taxes, was around $25,000. $25,000. And she has a house in her name. She has a car in her name, and she just got the job done. And I never, till this day, my mom doesn't complain. She doesn't complain about how tough it was. She doesn't complain about how hard she had to work. She doesn't complain about the endless nights and the weekends that she, worked at the department store or delivering packages or whatever else that, odd jobs that she does. She just goes out there and she does it. And she always helps people no matter what. And that's big for me. Something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life is the example that she led. And she wasn't a big rah rah, look at me. She just did it. And I fall into that category a lot with my leadership style. There isn't anything that I'm going to ask a team member or, someone, a peer to do that I'm not going to do myself. And that comes from directly from my mother. So, I wanted to talk about her first because she continues still to mold me, and I, talk to her about just life and in general, and she gives me guidance, she gives me hope, and she gives me prayer. And that leads into my pillars, right? Faith, self, your family, and then vocation. And my mom she always put her faith and family right up top. She never took care of herself. But one thing that I did learn from her is she took care of herself by taking care of others. That made her happy. She was a servant leader. Those were the things that she enjoys to this day doing. And that's how she energizes and keeps herself healthy. So, my mom, big part. Kudos. Thank you, Mom. I love you. The second woman who was influential in my life was a professor, and I was at graduate school at the University of Oklahoma. Dr. Centron was a professor that everybody, you walked in the door and she was a figure to be reckoned with. She demanded respect in her classroom. She demanded the best out of you. She wanted you to be your best version of yourself. And I always tell the story this way. One day I was in class afterwards, and it was an evening class. I was married at the time. I had two kids myself, and I was pushing through graduate school to get up my GPA to go to med school. And that was my dream. That was what I wanted to be ever since I was little. People would ask, and I wanted to be a doctor. So med school was something that I was trying to get into. I was working in an emergency room at the time, local hospital here, just to get connections, get skills, figure out if, medicine, healthcare was something that I wanted to do. And it was. I love helping people. I talk about that from this side of the table now as a frontline leader, but I've always had a service mind and service oriented jobs. But she quickly realized that med school may not be in my future before even I did. Once you set your mind to something, I was going to go after it no matter what. I took the MCAT, did not score very well. I was studying to take it again, and she came to me one evening, and I can see it clear as day if I close my eyes. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I looked up at her, and you only addressed her as Dr. Cintron, and you better, have the right accent on the syllable there. She goes, "What are you doing? You're working at a hospital." I'm an introvert, and through my undergrad, I showed up. I did the minimal as far as group work. In my graduate education, however, we were required to do presentations. We were required to stand up in front, present work in groups. She goes, "You're great at presenting information, synthesizing information. What are you doing?" And I didn't really know how to answer her. She was intimidating, for me, I was like, well, I'm studying, I'm reading your book and I'm doing the work that you told me to do so I can make a good grade in your class is the answer that I thought, but it was deeper than that. It was an answer that I had to answer myself. She wasn't looking for an answer for me to tell her. She was invoking an answer within myself. And at that time, I changed. It was a pivotal point in my life that I decided, hey, listen, maybe med school is not for me. And because of my education in the College of Education that I was getting my master's degree in, I took a lot of adult learning, philosophical adult, andragogy, pedagogy, the mindset of adults, how to retain information, how to make them remember longer, all that kind of stuff. It was only because of the fact that I needed to get my GPA up. That was the reason I went to grad school. And the only reason I was in the College of Education is because OU had an intercollegiate athletic administration degree program at that time, and it just happened to be through the College of Education because that was my background. It wasn't training. It wasn't adult ed. It wasn't being an instructor. It wasn't being a developer. None of that was in my future until she asked me what I was doing. And my life changed. And I would not be the person that I am if she hadn't came to me and provoked that question. So those two women, my mother and Dr. Centron, I don't know where she's at, but thank you. Thank you for everything that you taught me. Mom, you're still teaching me things, and I probably don't call you enough. I'm sorry if you're listening to this. I love you very, very much, but I wanted to dedicate this podcast, this episode to you and Dr. C, because those things that you taught me got me in front of the microphone to do what I'm doing now. And that's helping others. That is giving back. It's my time to do that. So thank you. Everybody, please go out, celebrate the women who are influential in your life. Call them up, shoot them a text, tell them thank you for what they've done. March is Women's History Month. We're going to do a couple other things within the month that I'm excited for. So make sure that you're stay tuned. Make sure that you're subscribed to all the platforms because you won't want to miss the interviews and a couple podcasts that we're going to be doing. I'm really, really excited about this month and where we're going. Everybody, go be great. We'll talk to everyone later. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us get others to where they're going.